The Court of Appeals will hear the case next week about the only district in a county where Black and Latino voters can determine election outcomes. In 2021, Galveston County's Commissioners Court put forth a plan that chopped up the only majority-minority district where Black and Latino residents make up 58% of the electorate. Guess what? They just broke it up and sent them all over the place. Obliterated that one district. Well, it's been going back and forth. That particular district found to be unconstitutional. Then, of course, overrules was back and forth. Valencia Richardson is the legal counsel for voting rights for the Campaign Legal Center. Joins us from D.C. So, Valencia, this has been back and forth. It's been a ping-pong match. Where do we now stand in this legal battle?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Tuesday, we're facing the en banc, so that's the full Fifth Circuit, is going to hear the appeal of the county of the lower court's decision, which found a Section 2 violation, a violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act by the county's decision to do what you said, to crack Black and Latino voters in Galveston County across 4 districts. And for the first time since the 1990s, Black and Latino voters do not have a district in which they can elect the county commissioner of their choice in Galveston County.
And if there's, now we already know how they've gutted Section 5, but Section 2 has been, the one, great thing that's still standing. And by using Section 2, that's how we got the 2nd District in Alabama, the 2nd District in Louisiana. Now, of course, you have the federal judge ruling in Arkansas. They're trying to actually target Section 2. They've been trying to obliterate that. Clarence Thomas wants to get rid of the Voting Rights Act completely. Well, that's the only way we've been, frankly, winning a lot of these cases.
And I think that Section 5 point is so important because Galveston County's decision back in 2021 to change the map the way it did, that was the first map that Galveston County passed absent Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. So Galveston County used to be subject to that federal preclearance that was obliterated in Shelby County. And immediately after preclearance was no longer available to Galveston County's residents, the county passed a illegal and discriminatory map and violated Section 2. And so it's not a coincidence. The Shelby County decision in the dissent, Ruth Bader Ginsburg mentioned that it's like taking away an umbrella, but because it's no longer because you're no longer wet. But it's still raining, and Galveston County was a prime example of that. One of the first maps passed in 2020 after the census in 2021 that for a district that was formerly subject to preclearance. And it was, of course, discriminatory.
So when it comes to Galveston County, is this the only Democrat district, or is it 4-1, or what's the ideological split in that county?
At the current map, the ideological split is 4-0 Republican. But I think more importantly, the current map is 4-0 insofar that there are 0 districts now that Black and Latino voters can elect any candidate of their choice. As you mentioned, they're split up across 4 in where they are the distinct minority. There's just no way that Black and Latino voters could ever elect a candidate that they choose in any of those 4 districts.
Questions from the panel. Matt, you first.
So first, thank you for doing this work. My mother is from Texas City and from Galveston County, so this is, important to my family. I guess the question I have for you, though, is what do you think the Fifth Circuit is going to really focus on? The Fifth Circuit, we know, is notoriously conservative, and I have no illusions that an en banc Fifth Circuit is necessarily favorable to the plaintiffs. So what is your thought about what they're going to focus on as it relates to determining whether this map should stand?
So, you know what? That's a great question because it's important to understand that the Fifth Circuit actually many years ago ruled that districts like these are viable. And so the question in the appeal is whether the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act in particular, imposes what the county would like it to impose, which is a single race limitation on Voting Rights Act claims. So the county is basically saying Black and Latino voters cannot come together to state a violation under the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The Fifth Circuit has long held that there's no single race limitation. There's no racial purity test on who can state a claim under Section 2. And that's going to be what the county has asked them to focus on, is whether or not that their longstanding precedent should continue. And I think that's what the Fifth Circuit is going to focus a lot on during the hearing on the appeal.
Kelly?
Sure. So I understand that this is regarding the Fifth Circuit, but it is also known that the Eighth Circuit had a similar case to this, and they did not rule in the party's favor that is equivalent to yours. So my question to you is, how worried are you, given that this is arguably the most conservative appellate court in the country, and what are next steps if the ruling isn't in your favor?
You know what? I think I'm personally always worried when you have a county like Galveston County who is essentially fighting to undermine the equal opportunity and representation for minority voters, in this case, Black and Latino residents of Galveston County. That always makes me nervous, and the fact that there's an appeal to determine whether Black and Latino voters in Galveston County, the birthplace of Juneteenth, is able to, the Black and Latino voters are able to elect their candidates of choice or have the opportunity to, is very worrisome to me. But I think what we should all be, what is a little different, and there are lots of differences in the Eighth Circuit case from this Fifth Circuit case. The Eighth Circuit case didn't involve a county district. It was different type of districting map. The legal question was a lot different than what's in the Eighth Circuit right now. But also, the Fifth Circuit has specifically decided the very issue that's on appeal right now, and has decided in our favor, because it's a very obvious, if you are reading the text of Section 2, it is just so obvious that it's hard to arrive to a different conclusion. And so I think there is room for hope insofar that the question is obvious. Like, what, how can it be that Black and Latino voters can't state a claim together? And when we have all of this evidence of clear history of discrimination, clear present day effects of discrimination, the district court, which said that the map that was passed in 2021 was stark and jarring. There's just so much there that I think we can see this as a different case. The Eighth Circuit was an outlier by all accounts, and wrongly decided. But we can see this as singular in a different way, but also singularly obvious in that Black and Latino voters should obviously be able to elect the candidates, have an equal opportunity to elect candidates of their choice, particularly under these circumstances in Galveston County.
Michael?
Thanks for coming on, Attorney Richardson. I had two questions for you. Hopefully I can get asked. One, the article from Capital B News says this case could undermine voting rights and Black Latino political solidarity. Can you talk about a little bit that Black Latino political solidarity in Galveston, Texas? Does it exist? What extent does it exist to, number one? And number two, how do you go about explaining the historical significance of the 1965 Voting Rights Act to African Americans and Latinos there in Galveston, Texas, because so many of our people, especially the younger generation, think 1965, the Voting Rights Act, was such a long time ago. That was back then. That may not have anything to do with what's going on today. How do you bridge that gap?
These are great questions. So the first one, with respect to the history of Black and Latino voters in Galveston County, I think this is a paradigmatic example of minority voters who have suffered from a long history of racial discrimination and have similar interests and issues, so obviously joining together. So we've got Black and Latino voters and residents of Galveston County who both suffer from segregation, for example, and who both continue to suffer from socioeconomic disparities, disparities in education outcomes, disparities in health outcomes, and who have consistently, for the last several decades, voted for the same candidates because the issues are also very similar. And so the power of Black and Latino residents in Galveston County is almost so, if you're a resident of Galveston County, if you're one of the plaintiffs in this case, it's almost so obvious as to be unsaid. And so this actually folds into your next question, which is the Galveston County is also a prime example of why the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was so important in the first place. When you look at the history of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, there was a recognition that Texas had pervasive discrimination by the majority against Mexican Americans and African Americans in the state. That is in the legislative history of the passage of the Voting Rights Act. When you look at the history of Precinct 3, which is the historical majority-minority district in Galveston County that was dismantled, you hear from Black and Latino residents who were there when it became a majority-minority precinct in the 90s, and when it was dismantled in 2021, felt like that importance because it was taken away from them by the county. And so they felt why the Voting Rights Act was important. And so explaining sort of why it's still important, look no further than Galveston County. You've got literally a direct causation from the dismantling of the Section 5 of Voting Rights Act through Shelby County to the next day losing the only representative that Black and Latino residents in Galveston have ever felt truly represented them. And you can explain that through just like the most recent history. We're not talking about 1965 history. We're talking about 2021. This happened. And so that's how I explain it to folks who are like, why is this so important? Like Galveston County is the example of why the Voting Rights Act is still important today.
All right, then.
Thank you.
Valencia, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Now, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network a few ways. Be sure to register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understand the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. This is a 10-week class. We're doing more than 10 weeks this time around. Next classes are Saturday, May 4th, Saturday, May 11th, Saturday, May 18th, and Saturday, May 25th, 2024, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Click right here to register here for the class. The class is on sale $60, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it any time. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can still watch the entire course. We have the lesson plan here for the entire course also already laid out, so you can look at the content that we cover. We deal with 80 to 100 articles, and I put together this class. I've been teaching this class on and off since 2017. Okay, I've been studying history 34 years now. do lectures across the country, been hosting the African History Network show 14 years. But we look at, there's over 200 slides that I put together, 80 to 100 articles that we'll go through and look at. The 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in class. I'll show you excerpts of the books on the screen usually. And we look at video clips of interviews I've done with historians like Professor James Small, Professor Kabahai Wafa-Kamene, Anthony Browder, who wrote Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, which is one of the books we use in the class, Runoko Rashidi, who wrote Black Star, The African Presence in Early Europe, which is another book that we use in the class, okay? So you can register for this. Its content is PG-13. You can use this information with your children as well. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. And we'll post the link here. The link's in the thread of this broadcast. And you can support us through PayPal and Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN show. So we have the information right here on the website as well. This is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it'll say Michael and show my picture there. These are fake African History Network Cash App accounts here that have been stealing money from us. There are a few other ones out there I've identified. I'm still trying to get them shut down. You can click right here on our link and it shows our QR code, okay, for Cash App. This helps us stay on the air, keep doing the research, pay some of the bills, etc. Upgrade equipment.